Hello friends, welcome back to the Strong Stoic Podcast. I am your host, Brandon Tumblin. And Tom Petty said, "Some say life will beat you down, break your heart, steal your crown." And that seems like a rather pessimistic and cynical take on life. However, we add that pessimism and cynicism in our heads to that lyric. Perhaps Petty wasn't referring to this as an inherently bad thing. Tragedy, heartbreak, etc. are viewed as indifferents in Stoicism, but they could also be viewed as good if we use them to improve our character. Could we go so far as to say that suffering in the form of heartbreak and tragedy could perhaps come to us if we're lucky? This podcast is supported by my patrons on Patreon. If you would like to become a supporter of the Strong Stoic, consider checking me out there at Brandon Tumblin. It's deeply, deeply appreciated. You can also join in on the discussion on Telegram, Strong Stoic Channel and Strong Stoic Channel Chat. My articles you can find on Medium and the Stoic Gym magazine. And finally, my newsletter is available on Substack, where you can sign up for free, and there's also a premium version where you get some extra goodies on there as well. All of my Patreon supporters do get access to my premium Substack newsletter as well. Music holds a special place in my heart. I did just read you a Tom Petty lyric, and I do love Tom Petty, by the way. I was listening to him exclusively for probably about 2 years or so. But this is a common thing among a lot of people, right? Most people like music to some degree, though there's varying levels of love for music. I think most of us love it to some degree. Songs, through the harmony created by the instruments, but specifically through the lyrics as well, give us much to ponder and figure out. And we may not understand why we come back to a particular song or what it really means, yet we are drawn in for some reason. We keep coming back to that song. Now, this is a sign that the song holds deep meaning. When you keep coming back to a song, it's because it's resonating with you. It's hitting a chord. And it's a mystery often, but there's a chord being struck somewhere deep inside your soul. You might think, well, what about gangsta rap? You keep going back to those songs. And my response would be, well, your soul isn't exactly 100% pure, so sometimes the vice manifests itself as well. So it's not necessarily the case that music is like this beautiful, wonderful thing that has great things to it. Now, music isn't indifferent as well in Stoicism. It can be good, it can be bad. I personally spent years trying to understand what a particular song means, and it actually wasn't the one I talked about in the intro. Sometimes I make a breakthrough and understand it at a much deeper level, these songs, these lyrics. It takes years sometimes to really break them down, and as I mentioned in the past before, it's like there's levels to understanding to things. I mean, you can understand Stoicism, for example, really simply, but it might take you 100 years to really understand what it really means, and a lot of songs are like that too. Even though you know what it means, it's like there's deeper levels of understanding here where you make more connections and it affects you on a much deeper, more grounded level. Anyways, these breakthroughs are encouraging for sure, though they are often bittersweet. I think, how could a breakthrough be bittersweet? Well, yes, we learn some truth, but truth is often hard to swallow. And I bring this up, the whole spiel on music, because I understood what a song means that I've been listening to for about 10 years, but I only really understood this on a much deeper level here recently. So it was an encouraging thought, but I thought it might be worth mentioning the background to really what songs and music are and can be for us. I've been speaking much lately about the idea of amor fati and Stoic grace, which is deeply connected to amor fati, in my opinion, even though there's no such thing as quote-quote Stoic grace. That's a Christian concept for the most part, but there are mirroring of it in Stoicism. Amor fati is actually a Nietzsche idea, though the idea is a Stoic idea. It just wasn't called amor fati. So some people give some slack about that because they say, well, actually Nietzsche said that. And yeah, you're right. But this whole idea of accepting things as they are and even loving it and maybe the Stoics wouldn't use the word love, but they would say, use it to make yourself better, which I would actually say that's what love actually is. That idea dates back to Epictetus, right? And probably even before that. It's a hard thing to grasp, though. How is it possible to love one's fate if it's filled with suffering, and indeed your fate is filled with suffering, and probably will be more in the future? As I've said before and will say again, loving one's fate doesn't necessarily mean you take joy in it or you feel affection about it, but it means that you are using what happened and what is happening as a catalyst to make yourself better, particularly your character better. That makes it good in the Stoic view. So tragedy, it actually can be a good thing. Now, there's a real existential question here, though, in this idea of tragedy and heartbreak. If your character is improving upon it, then it means that you are becoming wiser. Wisdom, after all, is a cardinal virtue. So if you become more wise, then of course your character is becoming better, more virtuous. Some may argue that wisdom is actually the most important cardinal virtue because everything else hinges upon it. Cardinal actually does mean something like hinge, so they all hinge, or rather, the other virtues hinge upon the cardinal virtues, which includes wisdom, justice, courage, and temperance. For example, kindness or generosity. Those are virtues, but they're not cardinal virtues because nothing hinges upon them. But what wisdom often means is letting go of fairy tales and accepting the cold, hard truth, the cold, hard reality of life sometimes. And that is, well, fairy tales and maybe you could say romantic notions that exist in our heads as to how life is and should be. A great example of that most of us experience in our lives is our first heartbreak. Now, this could occur at 12 years old or 15 years old or 50 years old, though generally it's somewhere in the teens. That's when a lot of kids start dating and they feel these, they fall in love for the first time and that kind of stuff. A broken heart is when your romantic views of life are shattered. Now, when we first start dating as a teen or later in life, we may be filled with the happily ever after dream. We fall in love, at least we think we do, and that love feels really strong because we have no other reference point. And when a young person tells you that they love something or someone, they mean it. We as adults could perhaps understand that for us, we now realize that the love that we felt at 5 years old or 12 years old towards the color blue wasn't nearly as strong as the love we feel for our child. But the only reason we can recognize that is because we have more reference points. A 5-year-old, a 12-year-old, they don't have nearly as many reference points into what love actually means. So it's kind of a bad thing to say, well, you don't know what love means, even though that may be true in some sense. Perhaps we feel like the person that we've been dating for the last 3 weeks as a teenager will be with us until we grow old together and then we die peacefully, right? That's the dream. That's the romantic notion. That's the fairy tale. But we could call it naivety. In fact, when a parent tells a child, as I mentioned just then, you don't even know what love is, what they mean is that the child has an entirely unrealistic expectation and understanding of what constitutes love. And then comes the heartbreak. Our dream, our fairy tale, our romantic novel is just shattered. And here's the hard truth. You are more wise with a broken heart than you were when you had this fairy tale in your head. Now, a good parent wouldn't feel happy that their child is suffering with a broken heart, but they probably would feel like it was a lesson worthy of the pain. And what comes after this pain? What comes after a heartbreak? Well, it's often something like cynicism. All of a sudden, your vision of the future changes from growing old together with someone to burning the Capitol down and dying alone. Just like how we have no reference point for the first love, we also have no reference point for that first heartbreak. It hurts, it burns, and we think, well, screw it. Love is stupid anyway. It doesn't exist. It's not real. Screw it. Now, here's the interesting thing that I just mentioned. I want to say it again. You are more wise and hence more virtuous as a heartbroken teenager than a romantic teenager. It doesn't feel nearly as good. It's not pleasant. Quite the opposite, in fact. But you know the reality of the world just a little bit better, and that's wisdom, and there's There's virtue in wisdom, and virtue is wisdom. It's not just wisdom, but it certainly is wisdom. Singer-songwriter Ryan Adams. No, I didn't mispronounce the name. It is Ryan Adams, not Bryan Adams. There are two musicians. One's called Ryan, one's called Bryan. I always get that. But anyways, he's not as popular as Bryan Adams, but he's a great, great, great singer-songwriter. Writes just amazing music. But he summed up this notion as the following. I'm going to read you these lyrics here. The lights will draw you in, and the dark will bring you down, and the night will break your heart, but only if you're lucky now. And for years, I thought about that. Why the hell would he say that it's a lucky thing to have your heart broken? And the answer is the one I gave above. It's because you're more wise now because of it. And that gives you an opportunity to become more virtuous. The light draws us in. That's the falling in love, the romantic notion of life. The dark brings us down. That's the realization that the villains in the movies aren't separate people, but within us and those that we love. It's the realization that we are not so perfect, nor are our loved ones. And the night that breaks your heart, that's the breakup. But only if you're lucky now. If you were to tell someone with a broken heart that it's a lucky thing, because you are wiser now, they'd probably light the world on fire. Surely cynicism can't be the wisest perspective, and it's not actually. It's wiser than naivety, but it's not the wisest. Lucky. Because after the pain fades away and you're left sitting with this cynical perspective on life, you may find yourself starting to feel the same good, loving feelings towards others. To do this, you have to have courage, because you have to be willing to be hurt again. You know the pain, you felt the pain. And in order for you to feel the love again, you have to be willing to feel the pain again. Now that's vulnerability right there. It's, you can hurt me and I know it, but let's give this damn thing a try. And not everyone gets to this step in life. Unfortunately, some people spend their entire lives in cynicism. And that's a bloody shame. So how do we get there? How do we embrace vulnerability? How do we learn to love again? As some corny musician said. I don't remember who. Well, Ryan Adams, again Ryan, not Brian, but Ryan Adams offers a solution. The lights will draw you in and the dark will bring you down, and the night will break your heart, but only if you're lucky now. That's the course, and he followed this with a bridge. And the bridge goes, and if the lights draw you in and the dark can take you down, then love can mend your heart, but only if you're lucky now. Now let's get all nice and corny here for a few minutes. Love can mend a broken heart. And no, not affection, not joy, but love. And what is love, dear strong Stoics? Did a whole episode trying to define that, several episodes actually. I had a much wordier definition in the past, but now I think I've simplified it a bit more. Love is the desire to see someone flourish. And we can love ourselves. We should love ourselves. That means desiring to see ourselves flourish. We can love others. That means desiring to see someone else flourish. And we can be loved by others. That means someone else desiring to see you flourish, to see us flourish. Sometimes when we're in that cynical state, we may be incapable of loving someone else. Depending on the severity of your cynicism, that's why a lot of people spend their whole lives in cynicism. It's too strong. They're not even willing to take the first step towards vulnerability because they're afraid. They're being governed by fear. Sometimes we stay in that cynical state. And sometimes the only way for us to get out of that cynical state is not by us loving someone else, but by someone else loving us. But only if you're lucky now. If you're lucky, you'll go through some tough things in life, because guess what? That will force you to swallow hard truth pills. But if you're luckier, you'll have the courage, the strength, the wisdom, maybe some people around you that can help you transcend the broken-hearted cynicism that comes from those hard truth pills. Now, sometimes that means someone else has to be willing to love a broken-hearted, cynical person. Those people aren't always easy to love. Someone that's cynical, someone that's pessimistic. And what a gift to receive. What a gift to receive, but also what a gift to give. And we can all do that. We can all choose, and it is a choice to love someone that may be a bit cynical about life and love. If you have anyone, literally anyone, that gives a single shit about you in any capacity, man, you better fall on your knees and be grateful for them. That is luck. And though all of us need luck, not all of us receive luck. We all have the choice to give it, though. We can all give luck. We can't choose to receive it, but we can give luck. And that's an encouraging thought. Now, I started this episode with a Tom Petty quote, and I feel compelled to end with its continuation and brief explanation. This is from Learning to Fly, by the way. Some say life will beat you down, break your heart, steal your crown. So I've started out for God knows where. I guess I'll know when I get there. If you are sure about anything right now, but particularly about your cynical views on life, on love, I challenge you to consider that you could be wrong. I challenge you to consider that maybe there's somewhere else for you to go from here. And you don't even need to know where it is. You don't even need to know how to get there right now. You just have to acknowledge that there's the potential to be somewhere else other than where you are right now. Thank you so much for listening. I hope you enjoyed this podcast episode. Consider leaving me a rating and review. It helps a lot. If you're new here, episodes every Tuesday. Used to be every Tuesday and Thursday. I may ramp back up in about a month's time to every Tuesday and Thursday, but at the moment, it's just every Tuesday. You can check me out on all the social medias as well. No more bugging today. Thanks again. Cheers until next time.